Oh boy. Let me get my water first before today. I'm kidding. We're gonna miss it. What was that?
I was taking a sip.
Missed it. What's up, everybody? What is up? Welcome into the All Day Everyday Show with All Day AJ and Manny Ruffin. So glad you are here. So glad you are joining us. We have such a fun show today. First interview in a good little while. So appreciate you guys here. For anyone that doesn't know us, my name is Alex. That is Manny Ruffin. We've been doing this for the past 3 years. We're here to interview the creator of and founder of Big Dogs Gotta Eat, fantasy football media based in New York City. He's been doing this for over the past decade. So we're really excited to kind of hear his story, how this all built, how he built all of this. And then, this all can kind of help us in our journey and where we want to go. So this is very, very exciting. We're going to get him in here as fast as we can.
Yo.
Yo. You got us? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
Nice. You look good, man. Look at that camera. Is that a Sony? Please say it's a Sony.
Thank you. It's a Sony, of course.
Of course. It makes sense. Well, hey, listen, we really appreciate you joining us. This means a lot. I know you've been been seeing you doing your own content with Jack, and then you were with Felipe as well. So we appreciate, you doing this. But I want to start off because you guys do a lot of trivia. So we've been watching. You guys are based in New York. I'm a big Rangers fan. We are based outside of Philadelphia. But after watching the Rangers, I know the Knicks just lost. I've just been watching the Rangers, and playoff hockey is huge in what's been happening.
I hope you're not about to hit me with some hockey trivia.
I'm not.
Right now.
It's not trivia.
It's hockey trivia off the rip would have been crazy.
It's not trivia. I just want to say, with how spicy the NHL playoffs have been, I want you to rank your the four major sports by their playoffs in your ability to watch them. If your favorite team is out, would you watch this first, this second, so on and so forth. I feel like you're going to say football, but
yeah, football is definitely my one. It's the only sport right now that I watch consistently throughout the year. So I think I have to kind of rank that atop the list just because I'm watching it all year and then into the playoffs, obviously. And I have so much riding on it because now it's my job and it's something I pay attention to all the time. So football would definitely be one. Basketball is the easy two for me. I don't really watch other sports, to be honest with you, outside of those, but I would probably throw hockey above baseball because they're probably even for me, but hockey games are, I think, more enjoyable to watch both in person and on TV. So I go hockey then baseball. So we got football, basketball, hockey, baseball.
And then I know you guys are in New York, Marist for you for undergrad. Does that make you all New York sports based fans, or did you develop other?
We're all over the place. So inside here, I don't know. Now I'm thinking about it, I don't know if we have a single, I'm a Knicks fan, but outside of being a Knicks fan, I don't know if between the bunch of people working in the office, we have a single New York sports team fan under BDGE at least.
Got it.
It's kind of crazy because we got, I'm a Falcons fan, NFL, Knicks fan for basketball, don't really follow the other sports. And then Tony's from California, so he's all Bay Area teams. Jamal's from Florida, so he's a lot of Florida teams. Gut's from Philly, but his family's from Carolina, so he's a lot of Carolina teams. So we actually have absolutely no continuity or any crossover between any of our professional teams or New York. Really, it's kind of wild.
Yeah, you guys are all over the place on that because at least he's all Philly and I'm all New York, so we don't really get to see a lot of the people that we talk to that are kind of bounced all over the place. But let's dive into you, man. We're so excited for this, man. We can learn a lot from you. Just take us back to where it all started. I know this has been almost for you, almost a decade. So from the very beginning, what the kind of idea was. I know it was fantasy football oriented, but where the plan was and how you kind of got to where you are today in your new office and Underdog Fantasy and everything you got going right now.
Yeah. I would say I've been making content for probably about 10 years. I wouldn't say anything was real or anything was planned. I would say up until semi recently, and I kind of just allowed my creativity or my passions to kind of push me for a really long time. When I started, it was all fantasy football, and it was because I loved playing with my friends at the time, and we were in a league together in high school. Took it real serious, and I ended up winning a bunch of the first few years that we played. So I think I won 4 out of the first 5 years that we played. And it was something that we were so into at the time. And I don't know, maybe 9th grade, 10th grade, something like that. And after like the 5 years had passed by, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm kind of good at this. I want to teach people how to be better at it. So that's when I started blogging about it. At first, it was just, pure fantasy football, trying to help people get better. But I didn't really like promote it or anything. I was a little bit too like nervous to put myself out there. And I just, created some free website on some shitty website hoster, started blogging about it, and realized quickly that there was like a little bit of organic traction to it. But I also realized that I hated writing. I'm like, I don't want to blog. It's not something I want to do long term, but I feel really comfortable on camera. I feel really comfortable doing like podcasts. So audio video felt like my lane to really stay in, and started making videos. And naturally, like the platform to put them on was YouTube at the time, and still for the most part is. So I started putting them out there, and I didn't take it like too seriously at first in terms of like volume. But even on there, I started to gain a little bit of organic traction. And I kind of thought to myself after a couple of years went by, and I was like, all right, this summer, I probably put out 5 to 10 videos. The next summer, maybe doubled it. After that, I was like, all right, there's like enough of a small following here that I want to see what would happen if I kind of went all in on this thing. And there was a summer probably from like, I don't know, May through September, where I got up and I made videos every single day, like long form videos. I'm talking about, 30, 45, 60-minute videos where I would research for them, film them, edit them, make the thumbnails and stuff for them. I did that for like, I want to say probably like 4 to 5 months straight. And in that time period, things like, they didn't blow up or like take off, but relative to where I was like, okay, there's like some real traction here. If I continue pushing here, I think I could probably make something of it. But this was just when I started getting into like the corporate world. So I had a full-time job at the time as I was pursuing the content on the side. And I wasn't making enough money from content, or really any real money at the time, until I started to like take it seriously enough to where I was thinking that it could be a full-time job. So I'd spend a lot of my time, working my normal 9 to 5, and then any spare minute I had on the side, I would spend it on, making content and filming and researching and editing and all that kind of stuff. So over the years, it kind of just snowballed into more and more growth, and I became a little bit more privy to the business side of content and understanding, selling things directly to your audience, and understanding how to make product, and understanding like the value inside product and what works with your audience, and building relationships with whether it's Underdog Fantasy or any of the companies or partners that I've worked with over the years. And then it's kind of just been like a steady climb from there. We got our first office a little over 2 years ago, and then we just moved into a new office space on Jan 1. So there was like, I would say 3 or 4 years of me doing it pretty much all on my own. And then a couple of years of me like really, really slowly integrating other people, whether they were my friends at the time or just like other content creators out there that I had kind of linked with over the years. And now we've been kind of scaling and building the team, because I got to a point where I was doing a lot of stuff on my own, and I was like, it's fun. It's like a really good way for me to express myself. And that's always how I've, viewed content. It's always how I've treated content, is that like, if I don't feel like doing it anymore, I'm just not really going to do it. But this has always been like the best way for me to really get my thoughts out and get like the thing that's inside of me. I feel like I kind of need to talk about it. I need to get it out into the world. And that's 100%. Always that's always how video's been for me. But as I've been doing it, it was like, it's not as enjoyable when you don't have other people to share it with, like when you leave your corporate job, it's like, man, all the coworkers that, I'd be like, I fucking hate those guys, or like you talk shit about them. It's like, as soon as you don't have them anymore, you're like, damn, I kind of miss like the camaraderie, or I kind of miss like having other people around to like bounce ideas off of. So as soon as I left my full-time job, which was probably like 6 or 7 years ago at this point, that was when I was like, damn, I really want to like start surrounding myself full time with people who are driven and passionate and kind of want the same thing as me. So I've slowly been like reverse engineering my way back into an office, but just like on my terms. Yeah. But it's been, a really, really long, it's been a really, really long runway, to land the plane here. So like, I don't want anybody to get confused with just the way that, YouTube and TikTok numbers kind of explode. Like this has really been a 10-year grind, damn near every single day in and day out, of doing the right things over and over and over and over again. And they slowly build onto one another. So, that's probably a shortened version of it. I can go way more in depth on whatever parts of that you want me to, but we're here now. So
speaking on doing the right things, because like the sports content world is like, when you're first into it, it's kind of hard place to make money at first. And you told like a really dope story about how when you're out of college and you're working and bouncing from different corporate jobs, how you made that draft guide that was for you're going to give out for free, but you sold it for $5 and you end up selling to like thousands and thousands of people. How much did that do for you at that time for like self-belief and like validation and even like people around you? Like, listen, I'm putting hundreds and even thousands. You say put hundreds of dollars in that guide, so you're probably thousands and thousands of hours into content creation and doing stuff for fantasy football at that point. Like, how much did that really help you, give you a boost at the time? Like, would it have mattered if that happened? Do you think it would have still made it if that didn't happen, or was that really a boost that you needed at the time?
Yeah, I mean that's a really good question. I don't think I've ever gotten that before, and I don't necessarily know that I think uh, too much about like whether or not it was the right thing at the right time. I don't think I thought about it that way at the time. Looking back now, yeah, it definitely gave me validation that I wasn't necessarily looking for at the time. I did it because I was like, man, this feels like a really good just organization of all the value that I've been working on for a long time. And it'd be a cool thing for like everybody to just be able to get this all in one and have like the one thing that I made be like a superpower for them in a sense. Looking back now, yeah, it opened my eyes to the fact that like, whoa, like you could do real numbers here. Like you can, make serious money, you can grow seriously. And it gives you that validation of like, it's one thing for someone to come watch your video. It's another thing for them to come like hit the thumbs up and then subscribe to your channel. But them putting money towards something that you said was worth their money is a whole nother like evolution of what you're doing as a content creator. And as soon as you start selling things, you become, I guess part entrepreneur, part business person, part creator / business person. I think that's like the modern day creator looks at themselves that way or wants to become that, right? They want to become basically half and half where they can financially incentivize themselves at that point. So at the time, I don't think I knew that I was doing it for that. I don't think I knew I needed that validation. But looking back, I'm sure I would have gotten here eventually that way, one way or another, just experimenting with things and seeing what worked and what didn't work. But that probably launched my mindset into like, whoa, okay, if I made, $20,000 off of this year of selling product, if my audience grows 2x, 5x, 10x, why can't my income also grow 2x, 5x, 10x next year? And then you start to experiment with different tweaking things like, okay, if I raise the price from $5 to $10, does everybody just automatically stop buying my product, or do they actually buy more of it because they look at it as more of like a luxury price product? So it's all these things you don't think of whatsoever when you've never done them before and you don't know any better. And then that's where like the business savvy comes into effect, is you learn from the right and the wrong things that you do. And I think I've been fortunate enough to like have a long period of time where I've been able to experiment, and that's the biggest thing, is like a lot of these things I go into without having a preconceived notion of what I think they're going to do for me or what kind of validation they're going to give me. But you learn very quickly. So it's like experiment rapidly, take the results and the suggestions that you learn from the experiment, and then implement change very quickly as well. I think it's a lot easier to do via content because it's like very low risk. Products a little bit more high risk because you put more time into it, and it's like, it's going into somebody else's hands and they're paying for it. So you have to be a little bit more skeptical. You have to be a little bit more devil's advocate on your own stuff. Whereas content's like a free flowing kind of expression of who you are. So it's a fine line between the two of them. I think they both offer validation. I think product validation is one that's tough for a lot of creators to get because it's something people are trying to do so often now that it starts to blur the line between like, are you giving me value or are you just trying to sell me?
Yeah.
Well, I know you may have touched on this briefly, but in the time that it's the long grind that it's taken to get here, was there a specific moment that you really thought this could be a full-time gig? I remember in that one video that you were talking, you posted on your LinkedIn with Jack, and you said, I think if you have 10 or 15,000, or this might have been with Felipe, 10 or 15,000 subscribers, that could be like, your full-time gig. Was there a moment for you? Was it TikTok? Was it the trivia? Was there a specific thing that you noticed was like, hey, wait, I can actually do this? Or was it before any of that when you were grinding those long hours doing those videos, those YouTube videos by yourself?
Yeah, it was during the YouTube stuff. But by the time like trivia and our TikTok blew up, I was already like a full-time creator on my own for probably a good like 3 to 4 years. So that was just like a culmination of experimentation afterwards. But obviously I've learned a lot from that, a new platform emerging, short form, all that kind of stuff, and different monetization stuff. But when I originally came across the idea that I could support myself full time, that was back years before that when you mentioned selling of the draft guide. Like that first year I sold the draft guide, I probably made like actually like maybe $20,000 or something like that from selling it. Yeah. And that was when I was like, okay, I see the momentum, the growth of the audience year over year. So if I can project them, if I could like put more time into creation and project the audience to grow like 3-4x, then I could probably project the revenue to also grow. If not, like I didn't even need it to grow 3x, 5x, 10x at the time. I just wanted it to grow, 2x, go from 20 to 30. And then the next year I can go from 30 to 50. And in like 5 years, I could be at 80 or something like that. You know what I mean? Like very, I get even like pessimistic, I would say. I've always been a more pessimistic business person when it comes to numbers, because I think like if you think pessimistically, then you'll usually overshoot it. And if you plan for pessimistic, then you're usually surprised at how high you'll jump over those numbers. But you never want to overplan. You never want to like overinvest and not have the funds or not have the runway to live out like the goals that you had at that point. So at that point, I think I made the money that year, and then I had been working full time in the marketing field, and I was like, man, I think I'm going to leave my job and go after this full time to free up more time on the content stuff. And that was like the year that was, I want to say like 2015, maybe 2016, maybe 27. I don't know. Somewhere in that like time frame, that 2 to 3 year window. And that's when I was like, if I leave this job, I'll still need to make money elsewhere, like, freelancing, doing online work, whatever it was, to scrap together this like creator lifestyle of like giving me more time to work on creator stuff, but also not delusional to the point where, I don't need money elsewhere. Like I was on my own, I needed to survive myself. So I was doing some of the marketing stuff that I had learned in my full-time job and taking on like online clients to kind of put together the money I was making there with content creation. And it was that year where I was like, all right, I'll leave my full-time job so that I can work half and half freelance, half and half creatorship. And I think by the end of the summer, like I'll see where I'm at. And I think that by next summer, I should be good to go. And to be honest, that first summer, things like took off. So it went from whatever my income was the previous year to making way more money than I needed to at the time for how old I was. I was like 24, 25. And made a lot of money in content. And that was like the first. It wasn't that I didn't know before. Like I knew, I was like, I'm going to get there for sure. I didn't really have any wavering thoughts or beliefs that I would get there. I just didn't know how quickly it would happen. And it happened really that first summer that I put all my stuff into it. But I do remind like a lot of younger creators that want to jump in like that. Like I so strongly suggest not to do that unless you have a lot of momentum going, unless you have audience momentum, unless you have financial momentum where it's like, okay, I clearly see the wins starting to stack up here. And if I was able to put a little bit more time into it, then I feel like I could get to that line that I need to be. The reason I made that jump was because I saw that line there and I was like, I can make this jump if I do put more energy into it. So I got there, I made the jump, it worked. And then, the rest is kind of up to where we are now.
Well, I also give you like your props there too, because social media, 10 years ago, 2015, it's clearly not where it was then. So for you to have the success that you had on YouTube especially, and then taking that to the short form content, I think is something for at least us who are trying to get into those positions too, like you. I think that's really powerful too.
Yeah. So no, go ahead. My fault.
No, I was just going to say, it's like, it's so important to stay on top of what's going on in social. And it's not always just me, but there are a lot of dudes inside the office that they're younger, right? And they're the ones that are like pushing the short form and TikTok because that's what they know about. And it's really important for me to stay open-minded to the things that I think it's really important for every creator to build their leverage, to build leverage on one place, right? One place that they are great at. Because I think so many people try to be good everywhere before they're great in one place. And I think that's a huge mistake. And I think where you could build a ton of following or a ton of audience in one place is what's going to set you up everywhere else. So I think trying to be awesome in one place should be the first thing on every creator's mind. But eventually you'll get to a point where you hit that spot and you're squeezing as much juice out of that area as you possibly can. And eventually you'll start to see the decline. It's a natural decline of every platform, of every creator, of like the growth of exponential, ongoing is not something that's real forever, right? It eventually starts to decline. So you need to keep an open mind to like, when is the shift from this thing that's been getting me so much leverage for so long to the thing that's now getting new people new leverage? And when do I need to make that move? And the younger kids in the office always have their eyes on these things. And I try to stay as open-minded as possible. And I'm always trying to learn. Like, I left my last corporate job at, 23, 24, whatever it was. And I didn't have anybody teaching me past that point, right? Like, I needed to stay on top of things. Otherwise, I wasn't going to learn. So it was listening to a bunch of marketing and business and social podcasts and watching videos and reading blogs and doing all that kind of shit to make sure I stay on top of things and make sure I experiment. And it's like, you need to experiment all the time. And as soon as you see a little bit of leverage break, that's when you start to go all in on that. And then once you build leverage elsewhere, like on TikTok for us, then you can start experimenting in other areas, right? You put like 20% of your time into experimenting, whatever it is, and then something within that experimentation is probably going to break for you, and you build leverage there. And it's kind of this ongoing experiment of finding out what works here, squeezing the juice until there's nothing left, moving elsewhere. But you need to be experimenting the whole time while you're squeezing the juice, because otherwise you're just taking a jump to complete uncertain parts of social, right? So it's always this like ongoing, put all your energy into something that works great, but experiment, and then something over there will probably start working well too, as long as you kind of keep your eye on what's working for other people.
No, 100%. So over the years, if you've grown this thing, like you're in this thing for 10 years, at a point you started bringing people on, working with your homies, working with your friends. We've had editors we've worked with. We've, at a point, how many people? 3, 4 editors? And like we've had one, I would say that worked really, really well, like our homie for life. And a couple others that haven't worked as well, but like we've learned a shit ton about like just working with other people and like, you know what I mean? Building a team and how to keep people engaged and stuff like that. How much did that help you build your business? And how much did that help you as like a business owner? Just like hiring people, learning who's good at what, like having to let go of some people, probably having to hire new people. Like what was that process like for you? And like how much did you learn about just business in general, aside from just fantasy sports during that process?
Yeah, it's been the
it can be a headache sometimes.
Yeah, it's been the most difficult part of growing this for sure. I mean, bringing on a whole new person, a whole new group of people, a whole new like part of your business is extremely difficult, because you eventually have to take a step out of what got you there, right? You're no longer really in the trenches, and you are now like managing the people that are in the trenches and putting them in places to succeed. And at the end of the day, a lot of people sound good. They look good on paper. And then when they need to do the thing, they're not as good, right? And that's okay. That's just what you're going to find out, right? Like you'll realize who, I think Alex Ramosi said this, but like you'll realize who the A players are very quickly within a week or two of working with them, right? And it's okay that not everybody's an A player, but as soon as you realize that someone's not up to par with what you need, it's probably time to let go. And that's the hardest part for sure, because we're all human and none of us want to come to that realization. We give ourselves a lot of excuses. And I don't see it as that much of a difference between business relationships, people that you hire and people that you let go, as I do relationships outside of work. Whether it's with significant others or friendships or whatever. Like, you set a boundary for yourself about ways that you don't want to be treated, or the ways that you don't want people to treat the thing that you're working on. And you either enforce it or you don't. And it's uncomfortable as fuck, because you have to be the bad guy, right? It's cool to work with your friends because everybody's your fucking friend. Yeah. Until you realize that like being a friend playing on a losing team is not as fun as playing with dudes who are talented on a winning team that may not be your friend. That's 100%. One thing that I've realized is I like playing the game with people that are talented over people that I find to be my friend, but don't want to fucking put their everything into this. Because I'm out here, and you guys know this, I'm sure you guys are doing the same thing, like working your fucking dicks off and sacrificing every day to do what you believe is the right thing to do. And people that you bring onto your team, they don't match that energy, then they don't have a place for you. You shouldn't have a place for them on the team. Like, you need to set very clear expectations up front. This is something I've learned, very clear, tangible expectations up front, so that, you bring them on and say, hey, in a month, we're going to have a sit down meeting. And I want to just make sure that we're checking off every single one of these boxes. So when that time comes and you did it, cool, we could talk about what more I want to put on your plate. If you didn't do it, then there's no back and forth here. There's no emotional conversation to be had. There was a very clear upfront conversation about like what you were expected to do. And this is the trouble that a lot of people get into, is that they hear the excuses from the people like, oh, I wasn't sure about this, or, oh, hey, like this came up. And it's like, then you should have communicated with that up front. Like, then you have one of two problems, right? It's like, one, that person either has a communication problem, which is equally as big of a problem for your company, or two, the person is not respecting what you're putting in front of them, right? So both of those are equally as big problems for your company, your project, whatever you're working on. And like growing the team is just as much of a product as the person being talented, as them being a team fit, as them being a culture fit. But I also think it's like you're gonna fuck up and bring on, like you said, I would say like for every 3-4 people you bring on, only one of them is going to be the right fit for the thing that you're doing.
That was
like
the exact ratio. That's
what I'm saying. Like you brought it up, and I'm like, that's probably correct. Like we probably have like 7 or 8 guys on our team right now. But in the entirety of like BDGE, when I look through every content creator we had, every editor we've had, everything we've ever had, we've probably had like 35 to 40 people come through the doors that if they were talented enough and wanted it bad enough, like could have been here full time, but it's just not the way it worked out. And I feel like it's okay, right? Like every time you go on a date with a girl, she's not going to be the fucking one that you end up with. You might have to go on 5 dates with girls before you even want to go on a second date. And I don't see that as too different from the people that come into your project. And I think the biggest thing is just having those upfront expectations, telling them what you expect, what you want. Some people can meet those and then still not go above and beyond. And even then, I would say that they're probably not the right people for you. You want someone who's going to do the checkmark shit and then also be like, hey, I saw this opportunity. Or like, hey, this was really, really cool. So I went ahead and did this even though you didn't ask. Like those are the people that you want to be surrounded by. Not because like they're going to like bring so much value to you, but also surrounding yourself with those types of people is so fucking important, because there are going to be days when you don't want to work, right? When you're the one everyone's looking up to and you're like, I'm tired, whatever. But one of those people that you just hired comes to you with like a fuckload of energy and is like, yo, look at this thing I did. You're going to be like, damn, I can't let them down now. Now I got to meet him and reciprocate that type of energy. So now you're going above and beyond for it. And it's like, you start to build up a team of people that do that. And before you know it, you guys are all just like stacking on top of each other, and it becomes this great thing that you have. But it starts with like trimming the fat, because you're really only as strong as your weakest link, man. You let somebody come in there and be toxic with the culture, and it's going to rub in on everybody. So it's as much of a personal fucking therapist thing as it is like running a business and looking at money and revenue and fantasy sports and all that bullshit. It's equally as hard on both sides of it.
Well, I can like personally just appreciate how transparent you are with everything. I know we can learn a lot from just your experiences. One of my favorite videos that you have on there was from the COVID year, and you kind of really broke down on your YouTube. You broke down like the money and how that all works. So like something like us who, it's only been 3 years and we're kind of struggling on TikTok in terms of getting the followers, like just seeing how transparent you are in the journey. And especially in those conversations there, like we can really take a lot from. I know we're getting the time here. Really appreciate it. Want to get a couple more out here. If you could go back and start over with everything that you know now, what would you do differently? I know that's so hard because it's like been so long, but just with how crazy short form is now, like what would you do differently, if anything?
I mean, I'm a different person now than I was back then. So I actually think that the type of content I would put out would be different. Like I'm not as motivated by just like sports and fantasy sports as I was when I started. I love doing, like you said, you watch this stuff with me and Felipe and me and Jack, and that's what really like gets me going, like these types of conversations. So if I were to start tomorrow and I had like no responsibility, like nobody, working for me or anything like that, and no financial responsibility, I would make content like that 24/7 pretty much. I would do the same thing I did with fantasy, but in that realm of things, I would probably still hit YouTube. I would make an effort to go to YouTube and TikTok and leverage as much of that as I possibly can, with the caveat that the biggest mistake I made for sure was not thinking about the packaging of YouTube videos from the rip. Like the thumbnail / title, without a doubt, is something that I just let go by the wayside for like 3 or 4 years before I realized how important it was. And then once I realized how important it was, then it took me like another 3 to 4 years to even get like okay at making it. So that is from the jump where I think people struggle the most and don't think that it matters as much as the content, where it couldn't be more flipped. Like your content has to be great, but no one's going to be able to watch it unless your thumbnail and your title are hitting like that. So
is that, do you mean by that like SEO based for like thumbnail, or like can you just go deep, just a little bit deper into that just for me? I'm following it, but not.
I don't necessarily mean SEO based. I don't really I don't think anything in my career has really focused on like SEO. I think making the packaging just something somebody wants to click on. So the way I look at it is like a title of a video tells you what you're about to watch in the video, and then the thumbnail is the creative part. So when I think of packaging the two together, it has to tell a story, right? Like some of the best practices I use would be like, I would only put probably 3, maybe 4 assets in one thumbnail. And by assets, I mean like my face, asset number 1, text, asset number 2, an accompanying picture, whatever that may be, whatever the title. Like if it's talking about running backs, like Derrick Henry would be asset number 3. No, like I'd keep it very minimal. Text, I would never overlap what the title says with what the text says in the thumbnail. It's redundant and you're not using the space to tell a story. You want someone to see the story. You want someone to see the thumbnail, not know what the video is, but make it intriguing. And then they read straight to the title and then it tells you exactly what it is. And that's the way that it connects the story. So it's like if you're making a video that's like a list, like top 10 this or top 5 this or something, you don't want to remake that same text into the actual thumbnail. You want to think of like a witty or a creative way to choose maybe one of the topics or one of the interesting things within that list of 10 and put that in the thumbnail. So people are like, oh, something that's like counterintuitive. That would make them think about like, whoa, like why is this in here or something like that? Where it might be like, I don't know, like top 10 things to do after the gym in order to grow muscle or whatever. And then it might be like a person holding like a soda bottle or something. You're like, whoa, what is that? Like, why would I want to drink soda afterwards? You're not sure what the thumbnail is. You go right down to it. It's like top 10 things to do after a workout. It's counterintuitive. Now you got to know. Now that's a bad example because like I don't think anyone would ever make a video of why like soda is good to drink after a workout. But you get what I'm saying.
They start saying gummy bears are good, Rice Krispie treats, bro. You never know these days.
That's what I'm saying. Like if one of your points like does revolve around like you need to get sugar into your muscles like as soon as possible after the workout, you might be able to combine it. But that's the way I look at it. If I had to break it up really succinctly, it would be like the title tells you exactly what you're about to watch in the video. The thumbnail is where you let all the creativity flow in and you tell a very small, simple story within the thumbnail itself.
You could tell like
so.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No. So like I was just saying,
it gets me pumped up about.
No, I could tell. No,
it's like all I think about now is the packaging of videos.
What I was gonna say is like you could tell like you literally have 10 years of experience into this.
Yeah.
Like we're at 3 years, and there's sometimes we'll watch videos of someone on TikTok explaining like, oh, you should do this, and we're like that, or like watch someone's videos like, oh, they should package it this way. Like you literally have 10 years, thousands of hours of experience. Like you could probably tell people like what to do now. I kind of have a different question though because you've seen a lot of change being here since 2015, 16, 17. Yeah. What if you were in our shoes like year 3? Not saying we're gonna like go like you're our Nick Saban, we're gonna go do exactly what you say right now, but like being in year 3 at this point, things are changing. Like what would you focus on? Like where would your eyes be if you were early on building a podcast or building a brand and seeing how the way social media is changing now and how things are going?
Yeah, so I guess maybe to throw it back to you, give me your content schedule right now. Give me the platforms that you're spending the most energy on, and give me the schedules that you're posting probably like weekly. And then maybe I don't know if goal is the right word because I'm sure it's just to grow at this point, but give me a little bit more background on everything.
Yeah. So I would say like before, like recently, just some different changes, but we were doing like one podcast a week. We had just talked about, what did you say, that conversation was like a week ago? We said we want to go to every 4 days and try to do more long form content. We would love to do, I would say the most important social media asset of ours is TikTok. And we'd love to do 2 videos a day on there. Sometimes 3, we flirted with 3 sometimes, but like we found 2 is a good number.
It's hard for like the consistency of doing 3 a day. You run out,
especially if you're doing a podcast a week, which we were doing before.
We run out of shit. Yeah, because like I just got laid off. I've been dealing with a full-time job.
I didn't know if you wanted me to air that out. That's why I was saying this.
Fuck it, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, it is what it is. It's the truth. Like, I think, go back into that.
No, keep going, bro.
I was just gonna say, it's tough to battle with that. That's why, like, I appreciate that you were getting, you have gotten out of that. It's tough to battle it with that, but my biggest thing is, I went to school for broadcasting, so like I fucking want this. I was in a 9-to-5 as like a video editor, not for the company that I wanted to be in forever, but like I don't want that. I want fucking this. So the big thing that like I've learned from you is like you've been saying multiple times you never like settled on that, on one thing. You were always chasing what you wanted, your dreams, and striving for what you wanted. So like I always appreciated that. Our things, coming back to the consistency factor on the short form, we really are struggling with the follower count on on TikTok. I mean, we can get some of the videos, we can get our views there, but like we cannot get people to hit that red plus button. Like it's so much easier for these motherfuckers to just like slide to the next video, and it's getting really frustrating. Because it's like we have the content, we have the pieces, we can't get the. And I've noticed other channels too. Like the views are down for a lot of other people. I mean, I know I'm not saying you guys. I know you guys are different, but like I don't know what it is with TikTok for that reason. But yeah, I mean, we're YouTube, Facebook. We're on Facebook Reels. I don't know if you guys are. I can't get a grasp on that either. That one, I'm like, we're topping out at like 31, views on there. Twitter, we got a big following on Twitter because we started this by interviewing sports handicappers who had like big followings. So we inherited their followings, but now our Twitter almost feels like it's dead. We're like, if you look at what's the exposure number, it'll be like 89 views or 89. So that's kind of the frustrating thing there too.
Instagram, I feel like it's pretty good engagement wise. It's just consistency.
We just can't get followers.
Yeah, you'll have a video.
Yes,
it's weird. Like the conversion thing, I would say would definitely be a question I would actually ask you about. As far as like when it comes to short form conversions, we've had multiple million view videos, coupled in like the 100K, 600Ks, and it's like. You expect to like look at your phone and see like hundreds, even like a couple hundred followers come from that. Like, what would you do to raise conversions on short form? Like if you had that issue going on.
All right. Well, the first thing I would say is kind of going back to what I said before is like I wouldn't waste my time or energy on platforms like Instagram or Twitter if you don't feel like you're going to be putting a shitload of time and energy into it. Like even to this day, we have a team of people working and we almost completely only focus on YouTube and TikTok because our ROI comes almost straight from there. And everyone will tell you like, oh, you got to be everywhere. But it's like, no, like that only works for people that have the fucking resources in order to be everywhere. Otherwise, you guys are spreading yourselves thin. And it's like, as much as it is, it's like, okay, we're just like posting here and there on these things, but it also takes away from like your peace of mind. Like you're also changing mindsets in order to start doing it here and here and here, and you get more stress being like, I got to post in 6 different spots. So that's the first thing I would do is like really be like, where do I want our content to live? Like, where do I think makes the most sense for us? And it's probably YouTube and TikTok. That's the piece of advice I would give for that. For the actual content itself, is it what kind of sports? Like, what are you covering within the content?
So I would say mainly football, and then when we get to this season, I would say we kind of center around like the New York and Philadelphia teams thing. So like we'll follow like the Knicks and the Sixers throughout their playoff run, and then they'll probably go to baseball. It'll be like Yankees, Phillies type of thing. Okay. And then when it goes back into football, we like just hammer the shit out of football again. That's kind of like our rotation.
We got our first bit of success talking about football because it was more of like take-based stuff, kind of like Caps Off, but a little bit different, I would say, in terms of like,
because you're a wild motherfucker.
I would just get shit on for my takes about Kenny Pickett not playing in that bowl game. That was one of the videos that went. Another video was like I picked the Bengals over the Chiefs. What was that, 3 years ago now? At that point,
yep.
Like it was, and yeah, smile because I was fucking.
You were the first Joe Burrow guy. They don't give you your credit.
I took Joe Burrow over Justin Herbert. I got shelled for that. Like it was more kind of take based, and at that point, I think the one thing that I would say that we did incorrectly is, after seeing a couple of those videos get into the couple 100,000s, I mean, I think we could have just leaned into that a little bit more, and we didn't. And then now looking back on it, it's like, I can see why. Maybe if we kind of leaned into that kind of take-based football stuff, maybe we would have gotten more consistency in the views. Now we're kind of just dabbling with like what everybody else is talking about, meaning like top headlines, and creating our own takes and opinions from there. Because we've noticed, I mean, if you look at Caps Off, I mean, it's very take-oriented, and people disagree with that, which creates the exposure. You guys do a lot of trivia, which creates a lot of comments of people disagreeing or agreeing with what you guys are saying. That can kind of elevate a video in that sense. So I think there's a couple things that we kind of missed out on in terms of getting the engagement and what we're actually talking about, and making sure what we're posting isn't not saying all of it has to be an opinion, but it's something that can create a conversation in the comments, if you're following.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think content does well or doesn't do well because it's either a good piece of content or a bad piece of content. Yeah. I think a lot of what you'll find is if you have a low conversion rate, it's probably content that got a lot of views for bad reasons, right? Whether it's people just like yelling at what you're saying or whatever it is, that's naturally going to have the conversion low. Like people want to follow people because they're giving them value. at the end of the day. It's because they're teaching them something. They're giving them information that they didn't know beforehand. They're changing their opinion on something. They are there to provide value to their life. Sometimes accounts with huge view numbers will never get those follower numbers because they're doing it for those wrong reasons. So to be honest with you, I don't know that I would give advice to lean into those types of things. Also, can you guys hear that behind me? There's like a fucking jackhammer outside.
It's very, very faint.
Nah,
you're good. You're good. The
Okay.
Shure SM7Bs are awesome. LOL.
There's straight up like 4 dudes with jackhammers right outside my window right now. It's crazy. So one thing, okay, so for YouTube, I would say YouTube needs to be like segmented to what you're actually doing. Like your channel has to be known for what it's talking about. And that's a reason why we split off our regular fantasy football into a new channel that's just Dynasty Fantasy Football, right? They're so niche, but they're two completely different things. So I think going down the like football here, basketball here, New York here, Philly here is a surefire way not to grow on YouTube. Right. I think that's going to kill your stuff. I think you need to pick a direction. If it's just going to be football, and then pick what the angle is for that channel. And if you want to do multiple, right? If you want to do one NFL, one NBA, that's fine. If you want to do one New York, one Philly, that's fine. But I think YouTube more so than TikTok, YouTube is very directed with the growth of the channel and people following for specific reasons and specific value props that you're giving to it. So if you're all over the place with videos, your YouTube channel for sure is not going to grow.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. I mean, I can understand that that's part of the reason. Yeah, I mean, we've definitely seen, we've noticed, I think the one thing I was saying earlier is like, you guys have your structure, but in terms of not forcing the engagement, like I don't want that to be taken that like some of the things that I say are, I don't truly believe in those things. I still truly believe that Joe Burrow's better than Justin Herbert. And Kenny Pickett should have played in that fucking ball game. But like, I don't want it to be kind of taken out of context that like we say some of the things we're saying so people get pissed off and so people, it forces them to bring us the engagement. And you did say YouTube and TikTok. Going off of the TikTok conversation, have you ever been nervous at all that could potentially be gone? Do you think it's going away? Because at that point, I said to Manny, like, if that goes, we're fucked. Because like right now, like that's all we got. So if that goes, like, I mean, what do we do? Like, do we have to just lean into YouTube Shorts and segment out a lot of more YouTube videos that are on the shorter side instead of a big long form podcast?
I don't think TikTok's going anywhere. This happens like every 4 months where, this time it got even further in the Senate and now the Congress is voting on it. This literally happens every 4 months. There's never anything done about it. Maybe something changes in whatever it was, 270 days. But if I had to guess what it was changing, it was just like someone else is running it. There's just no chance you wake up a year from now and TikTok doesn't exist. It's just like too powerful. It's too part of culture. It's just too much money. Like there's no way I would not operate on the assumption that TikTok's not going to be around anymore. So I think that's fine. I think you should go heavily into YouTube regardless of what's happening with TikTok. That would be my piece of advice. I think with TikTok, you should be creating from a place of internal inspiration. I think you should be creating from a place of things that you want to talk about. I think headlines are fine, but you end up just getting into a lot of conversation that everybody else has. And you're just another kind of talking head with no unique angle. And when I think about long-term sustainability, when I think about how are we going to make money, I think you need to think of it like backwards to where you are. So you could think about what is the monetization avenue that I'm going to take? What's the product I'm going to sell? What's inside of it? Like, is it a draft guide? And if so, that has a lot of information. And if that's what I'm trying to sell, what would make people want to buy the information that I'm giving? It's giving them really good information for months and months leading up to that spot. So think about what it is you're trying to monetize with or sell or productize, and try to link what that is with the value you can give to the audience that would make the two seamless. That would make the two, like, if you're out there getting 100,000 views on takes that people just like to yell about, or ones that you don't feel strongly about, that's never going to convert to someone being like, yeah, now I want to buy this guy's XYZ. I think if you come with takes and have really good logic and or reasoning behind it that came with prep and research, and you really like brought it on those takes, I think you'd find a lot more success, a lot more grounded viewership that ends up turning into conversions. I think what a lot of people want to do is like see the 100,000 views, and it's just not the same as what 100,000 views were a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. 100,000 views is like, you can't scroll on your For You page without watching a video that has 1 million views. That is the norm now. That is not viral, right? Like, not something that has 1 million views is not viral anymore. It's just a lot of videos do that. So it's like, in order for you to have the success that people were having like 5 years ago with it, it's showing up and prepping in a way that people are not used to doing anymore. People do not show up anymore because 100,000 views is so easy to get now. So they show up without having to earn it, and that ends up leading to empty followers. So I think with most people, they underprepare for what it really takes in order for you to give valuable, really good content. Like when I make one YouTube video that's 20 to 30 minutes, it probably takes me 4 hours of research just to make that one video. And that's every fucking day, you know? So it's like when people show up and they just want it to be given to them because they show up every day, it's different. There's like a very fine line between patience and laziness, right? And I'm not calling you guys lazy. I have no idea what your actual like research or prep is for a lot of these videos, but laziness is just sitting there waiting for something to happen to you, when being patient is doing something a lot over and over and over and over and over again for a long period of time, and eventually something will happen to you. So I think there's a lot of confusion between the two in the short form type of videos. It takes less effort to make these short form videos. It takes less effort to get a lot of views on these short form videos. So it's going to take a lot more work, or a lot more of them, in order to see the same success that you would for the alternate type of video. So a lot of people want the get rich quick stuff without putting in the work that it takes to actually get there. So I don't know. I try to be, I guess, open and transparent and like show people the amount of work it really takes to get there. But I think preparation is probably like the lost part of the equation for most people going into content and creatorship. And I think that's probably a lost art on TikTok as well. Because I think about a lot of the creators that I do respect on these platforms. There's a lot of people that like gain a big following or get a lot of views that I don't give a fuck about their content. I'll swipe right by it because I don't think it's actually valuable content. Like I see it, I'm like, cool. You're going to get numbers, but you're not going to tell me anything or inform me about anything that a million other people aren't talking about. Then you come across some creators that really are, you could tell, they make it seem simple, but you could tell they're putting in the work beforehand. Like, even if you're watching like a Theo Ash, right? And he's doing like the film breakdowns. He doesn't just look at the film and then just start yapping about shit. Like, you could tell he watched all the film and he prepared what he was going to say on each video beforehand. And I bet you for his 3 or 4 minute film breakdown of a singular player, it probably took him 3 hours of prep in order to get that out there. And people start to value his opinion for that. And I think that's become a lost art of TikTok. And it was never something I thought happened on YouTube. When people came for the long form videos, they usually came correct and they put a lot of work in beforehand. So if I thought about the amount of prep I took for a long form YouTube video, I can make like 5 really well thought out TikToks in that same span that I feel like would get a lot of value across and a lot of respect from the audience. And you want to become the person that the audience respects, because at the end of the day, they will then want to purchase from you.
Yeah, no, seriously, that's so valuable and eye-opening, at least for us, on kind of your standpoint on it. Listen, we don't want to take any more of your time. We appreciate everything so much, giving us this conversation.
You know, dope conversation.
A lot of respect to you.
People like, if any, obviously people who tap in, but I feel like if creators tap in this conversation, like it's probably hella relatable. You know what I mean? And
I almost wish now, I mean, before we let you go, I almost wish now we could see, you know, the avenue that it would look in your career if you kind of stuck to this, because we can tell you're super passionate about it. It's super helpful to us, and we wish you all the best, and thank you so much for doing this and being here.
Yeah, of course, dude. This is like I said, these are the types of conversations I love having now. So I think I'll get there eventually one day when my full-time focus is on this stuff, and then we will get to see that path kind of play out. But for now, you know, like we all are trying to balance a million things and juggle a million different balls. I'm trying to take a day at a time, just kind of enjoy the process as always. And you guys keep doing the same and working hard. I'm sure you'll see success.
Oh yeah. Hell yeah. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate you. Have a good rest of the day.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Obviously, that you can tell that was so valuable for us. Any other creator that decided to tune in and listen or watch this can obviously see the value that and the time that Nick has put in and goes back to his point about patience and the value that it takes. It's not really about the get rich quick thing that he was going into about. So definitely eye-opening for us. Hope it was for anybody that watched or listened as well. If you did watch this on YouTube, make sure to drop a like, comment, and do not forget to hit that subscribe button. We do have our summer golf series season starting very, very soon. Tea Party, make sure to tune in for that when we get back to doing that. But if you want to connect with us on our social media platforms, find us on Instagram at 80EDPod. And Twitter as well, 80ED Podcast. We appreciate you. You've been listening and watching to the All Day Everyday Show with All Day AJ and Manny Ruffin. Nick, you're the best, man. This was amazing. And definitely things that we can look to use in our next coming videos. It was kind of, humbling a little bit. So we'll see you on the other side.